Star Wars Revenge of the Sith was released on the PS2 on the 5th of May 2005, and it's considered by many to be the best movie game in the Star Wars franchise, or for a lot of people, probably the best game in the Star Wars franchise. But was it really that good? Or was it just nostalgia? Let's find out. I recently went back and did a full playthrough of this game. I actually filmed it all and did it into a Let's Play series. You should go and check that out because literally nobody else has, so you might as well be the first. I've literally made videos of myself freezing Master Chief in White Monster, and that has done a gajillion times better than this series ever will. So why this game? Why come back to Star Wars Revenge of the Sith? So first of all, I just want to say, movie games, I would say around 2004 to 2006, they were just brilliant. I think a lot of these games did a great job just telling the story of the film while giving you a bit of expanded sort of lore, a bit of expanded content. The King Kong game also did this brilliantly, but Star Wars Revenge of the Sith on the PS2 was an absolutely brilliant game. From the graphics to the cutscenes to the alternate endings, there was so much good in this game, and the nostalgia will hit you straight away. So before we decide if this game was actually good or not, let's break it down bit by bit. We'll go through the levels, the graphics, some of the mechanics, the things that I liked, the things that I didn't like, and just the overall nice touches that really felt amazing in 2005. So, much like going back to any game from the early 2000s, right away the graphics are something that will probably throw you off a little bit, especially if you're from the younger generation and you've not really experienced these games and you've come to look at them purely out of curiosity. Obviously the graphics are going to feel like they fall short compared to the modern game. I don't think it's really fair to compare PS2 games to, you know, a PS5 or an Xbox Series X game or a PC game. But I like these graphics, I like the charm, I like the style. I personally miss when video games look like video games, and I think Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, I think it looks great. For its time, I thought it looked amazing, and as a kid, I thought it looked beautiful. The cutscenes are another thing I really like in this game. They feel like they've been pulled straight from the animated Clone Wars series. It just has that sort of, I don't know, that silly sort of humor that series brought, and you see that a lot of the time, especially with the characters' facial expressions and certain cuts. It's just hilarious. It definitely caught me off guard a few times while I was playing. This is stupid. I also really enjoyed the level design in this game. I feel like it kept true to the film while also giving you a little bit of extra. The Mustafar level is absolutely iconic. That whole boss battle in general was just amazing. I had so much fun going back to that, and the best part is you got to play it twice because there's an alternate ending to this game where Anakin actually wins. And just things like that, the whole what if scenario in this game is amazing. You know, they could expand on that and make many games just like that. This game does also feature some extra bonus missions where you play as various characters, from Grievous's bodyguards all the way to Yoda. Now, just to mix it up a bit, I'm going to go with something I would say is a little bit of a negative look at this game, and that is the Force powers. That could just be a byproduct of the time this game was released. The Force powers are very basic. You can sort of, you know, pick up enemies, you can push them, but the push kind of looks like a weird Kaioken Kamehameha sort of combo. It's dead weird. And when you run out of force power, it kind of looks like you're pissing on your enemy. But other than that, it's very basic. Compared to a game like Star Wars The Force Unleashed, which I believe only came out a handful of years later, and then games like obviously Jedi Fallen Order, it's nowhere near in comparison to that. But still, they're not terrible. I just wouldn't say the force powers are a big aspect in this game. At least I thought so anyway. Now, one thing I know many people loved, and I am no exception to this. By the way, I'm filming on my phone. Just cut for a minute. Like, I keep looking there, but I should be looking there. I'm so sorry. I'm getting used to this, okay? One thing we all loved was the versus mode. This was just something that was so unexpected. I did not expect this as a kid, and going back to it now, it's still so fun. There is a versus mode in this game where you get to pick levels, pick which character you want, and you could just fight out with your friends. This meant a lot to me because me and my older brother used to play fighting games quite a lot, and we'd often be quite competitive with each other. So to have a Star Wars version of this was incredible. I think prior to this, the only game that really did that was Jedi Academy, I want to say. At least from the top of my head. Yeah, it would have been that. I think Jedi Academy was the only game to have a versus mode, and maybe that's a game we'll cover one day in the future too. But this was incredible. There was a decent list of characters. They could have had more, But, you know, for the time, it is what it is. Obviously, compared to the original Battlefront 2, it had nowhere near as many characters. But, you know, the modern day Battlefront is another game that I would argue needs a lot more characters than it got in the end. Still, they didn't have to add this, so it was a nice inclusion. And like I said, this was a huge thing for most of the fans. Now, we've briefly gone over this already, but I just want to touch on it again in a bit more detail, and that is the story mode. As I said before, I thought this game did a brilliant job of really capturing the Revenge of the Sith film's story while giving you some extras. Some of the cutscenes in this game are actually clips from the film, and if I remember correctly, I think this game came out a week or two before the actual film. The game came out on the 5th of May, and I'm pretty sure Revenge of the Sith came out on the 19th. I could be wrong, I'm saying that from the top of my head. I will edit that in, and if I'm right, then wow, big 10 Star Wars points to me, nerd. But yeah, because I just have a core memory of playing it and then getting even more excited for the film, because at that time, for me as a kid, man, I just remember seeing the trailer coming on TV, getting the action figures. Obviously, how old would I have been? I'd have been 9 years old at the time, so this was huge, and all of my friends love Star Wars too, so I know I'm rambling on a little bit now, but let's get back on track. Yeah, the game did a brilliant job of that. The levels all looked great, as I said, especially the last level. I particularly enjoyed also the Mace Windu boss battle, the Grievous boss battle. All of these things were just so cool to experience as a kid. And I think, at least compared to the movie games, this game was so far above any of the others. I mean, the bar was quite low with the Phantom Menace, to be fair, all right? But still, it was such a fantastic game, and the levels were brilliant. And as I said, this game also does feature an alternate ending where you play as Anakin and you defeat Obi-Wan, ultimately killing him, and then you go on to kill the Emperor. It doesn't really show you what happened after that. That could be a game in of itself, a full potential Anakin taking over the galaxy. How insane would that be? And like I also said earlier in the video, there are some extra bonus levels where you play as characters like Grievous' bodyguard, Yoda, and these are just nice things that I feel like games don't really do anymore, not for free anyway. Like if you want extra bonuses like that, it usually comes in the form of DLC, where these were just good old-fashioned unlocks. You can actually put cheat codes in the game too, in the game's menu, and you would unlock those things straight away. If you can't tell by this series, I'm quite big on nostalgia, and I miss, you know, getting a cheat book, looking for the codes, and then putting them in the game. I miss stuff like that, man. Now, just before we get to the climax of this video, I'm so sorry. I do want to go over again some of the negatives. I don't just want to glaze this game or any game in this series. I'm going to give you the goods, the bad, and then we'll come together to decide, was it just nostalgia or was it actually good? That is the point of this series. And this game definitely was not without its flaws. The main thing that got me, and every single level featured this, and that was annoying, repetitive enemies. You would have your standard enemies. It could be droids or it could be clone troopers. And then you get some sort of, let's call them generals. They were like regular enemies, but they weren't quite bosses. They were somewhere in between. They were slightly powered, more buffed up enemies. But these guys could be quite difficult to kill, and you would get them back to back. It would start with just one, and it would feel sort of like a mini boss battle. You defeat it, and then you get two more. Then you kill two more, then like 20 seconds later, you get another two. And they looked the same. There was nothing different about them, and it got very boring and very repetitive. I can make that argument against all the game's enemies. It could have done with more variety, maybe in different types of droids, different types of clones, and it did do that to a certain extent, but mostly this game sort of felt like you were just fighting the same wave of enemies over and over again. This could make certain missions just drag out, feel repetitive, and unfun to play in some cases. And like I said, sometimes they just felt unnecessarily difficult sometimes. I get it, having, you know, stronger enemies makes the game more challenging, but you could do more mini bosses and things like that. Obviously, we're talking about a game from 2005, so it kind of is what it is, but it did get boring very quickly in some of the levels. I remember in the Jedi Temple, I think it was specifically, you got a sort of, God, I can't remember his name. The guy with the 4 arms, I think that was right. I can't remember his name. You got enemies who were the same race as him, and you just get them back to back, and it got really annoying. Another thing I'll say is sometimes the camera angles weren't the greatest on this game. It kind of had this weird sort of zoomed out view, which I don't personally mind, but I'm also more of a typical third-person fan where I like games that are just behind the character, sort of like in The Force Unleashed. I prefer that sort of camera perspective. But again, I'm just nitpicking there. The repetitive and samey enemies are more my biggest gripe with this game, and it definitely drags some of the missions out, as I said. Another thing I'll say is this game is very, very short. You could complete this in a single afternoon. It was maybe 6 hours long, I want to say. It only took me 5 or 6 episodes to complete the entire game on YouTube. Yeah, so you could get through this in a single afternoon. I don't know if they were kind of hoping the versus mode would kind of carry some replayability. It definitely could to a certain extent. As an adult, I would get bored of offline versus mode very quickly. It would only take me a few times until I'd be like, okay, I'm kind of done with this. Yet the game was very short, it got very repetitive sometimes, and the camera angles were not the greatest. One other minor thing, and this kind of grew on me in the end, to be fair. I thought it was quite funny, but the voice acting was not great.
Use the Force to move this wreckage.
In particular, for Anakin Skywalker, he sounded like an angsty teenager, especially in the last scene where he goes,
"The galaxy belongs to me."
"Belongs to me." He came off as a bit of an angsty teenager. And, you know, Anakin's my favorite character of all time, I think. I really love Anakin Skywalker, so I don't like him being done dirty like that. But was this game actually good? Or was it just nostalgia? Oh, fuck, why am I like? Or was it just nostalgia? Absolutely, definitely not. This is a fantastic game. Why did I say that so weird? No, this is a brilliant game. If you have the opportunity to play it again, I absolutely would. This is one of those games I would love. Not a remaster, but a full remake. I would like this to get the Oblivion treatment, where they take it, completely redo it, make it better, make it beautiful, maybe change the camera angles, like I said, make it more traditional third person. Or in general, one game I would love to see, and I've mentioned this in YouTube Shorts before, make a game, imagine Lego Star Wars, right, where you go through the first film to the sixth film. So like that, you go through each film, but in a adventure style, in modern day graphics. Feature an online versus mode. Oh, it would be the greatest game, the greatest Star Wars game of all time. And the fans want it. The fans are craving a new Star Wars game. A recent Fortnite update, well, I say recent, it was a few months ago now, a Fortnite update where they basically did a whole Star Wars season pass where you could use lightsabers, use force powers, fly around the map. It blew up, and it also then made Star Wars Battlefront 2 also grow again. So the fans want it. The fans want more Star Wars games. But where are they? I feel like the recent games like Outlaws, I personally have not played because I have no desire to. I've heard nothing but bad about it. So, you know, I know we've got a High Republic game coming out, and hopefully that delivers. But we need a new Star Wars game. But I'm yapping, as always. But in this case, no, this game was not just nostalgia. If you got your hands on this game now, as a Star Wars fan, you would very much enjoy it. And if you're a younger person watching this, if you're in your teens or whatever, if you can get your hands on it, definitely give it a go. Just look past the graphics and just take it for what it is, and I think you will really enjoy it. So anyway, guys, that is all from me. Do give this video a big like, subscribe, and help me keep this series going. I'm going to do many more of these, and I'm going to go through many more games. And that's really all I have to say. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.